Namaste and welcome to the Divas That Care Network. I'm your host, Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, our network is in its 15th year and listened to in over 30 countries. I would like to personally thank you for giving me the gift of your time. As always, it is my honor to hold space with you. And today, talking about holding space, we have our returning guest, Anshir, and she is here to talk to us about kind of a theme of releasing, letting go, moving on, and more importantly, some of the insights she took from the amazing travels that she's been through this year and how they have inspired her on her path, on her journey, any pivots they might inspire her to have made, and just to share with us the insights and amazing wonderful stories that she came upon as she took these beautiful adventures. So, and thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to have you back.
Thank you, Gia. Thank you so much for having me again. Appreciate it.
It's my honor.
So, should I just start in and tell
Yes,
you about?
please. So, by all means, so I know you've gone on a couple trips. One of them happened to be yoga related, but one is probably one of those like bucket list trips that I would think for many people. I won't limit it to just women, but you did take a trip to Nepal and the Himalayas and Tibet, correct?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
I engaged in a pilgrimage, a spiritual pilgrimage, and the highlight of the pilgrimage and the whole challenge that I'm really relating to this theme of completion is taking a Kora, which is a ritual, a Buddhist ritual, meaning circumambulating some sacred object, taking a Kora around Mount Kailash, which is a very sacred spiritual mountain in the Himalayas. And it has been for thousands of years a spiritual trek of Buddhists and of Hindus. And it's a total of 30 miles, and I did it over the course of 3 days with a group of people in Tibet. And I was really attracted to being able to get to Tibet. It's not easy, it's in China. So this group was focused on a spiritual journey. We visited many monasteries along the way as we drove up the Himalayan plateau and got to Mount Kailash. And the the actual Kora itself was really a pilgrimage in the eyes of the Buddhists, to really kind of dig deeper into our body, speech, and mind. And that's really what we got as in this physical life that we have. So, in growing spiritually, which I've always been a proponent of, and completing past karma, basically letting things go. This was a real opportunity to test my not only my body physically, doing a 30-mile trek, going to elevations as high as 18,500 feet.
Wow.
It was a pretty physically demanding experience. And I made it. So,
And you did it.
over letting go, completion of any fear or doubts, and letting that stuff go and starting fresh. So physically, body, speech, it's a matter of how do we interact with other people. I was with a group of 15 people. We're in adverse conditions. 3 days driving up to the mountain, and then 3 days walking around Mount Kailash. Lots of challenges, staying in very austere conditions at night in
Sure.
these.
Yeah.
So, really coming over kind of the speech and how do we deal, basically, how do we put ourselves out there with other people and realizing what how am I reacting to things along the way, learning about ourselves. And then of course, the mind and just the power of the mind to get through things. And while I was on that trek and walking up to these high elevations, I really did have this kind of overcoming sense of what I'd been through like the previous couple decades, because it was a tough
Yeah.
couple decades. And now
Right.
I'm moving into a new chapter that's now been a little bit easier. I kind of feel like I paid my dues there.
Yep.
And this trip was a way, really for me to complete a lot of um, old karma, old stuff that I was maybe holding on to and being hard on myself, some self-loathing kind of things. But in that experience itself, it was so spiritual. Just walking in the air and on those in those mountains was in itself just felt like made me so much lighter. Getting out of my element, my typical working day, and going to a new culture that really did make me feel differently about myself than when I'm in my own culture. So going to such an exotic culture. So yes, lots of completion. I really felt like when I was on the top of that pass, I had made it. I was like, I can do this. I can do life. I feel
Yeah.
lighter. Let go of that, those things that were maybe holding me back. So a lot of completion in that.
Look at what I'm capable of, right? Like, and you can even surprise yourself to a certain extent. And I've heard it said, and I don't know who coined, if it was a specific quote or if it's just kind of that thought process that goes around of you never really know yourself until you travel outside of your, and I don't want to say comfort zone because it's a little bit trite, but literally to in the instance of what you did out like alone, if you know, even if you were with a group, but if you weren't with, you know, a friend or a partner or someone like that, when it's just you and the world, and you just pick yourself up and you plonk yourself down elsewhere where you know no one, you know nothing, and you are just your raw self in this brand new experience, you find aspects of your personality, aspects of your ability, aspects of yourself, of your true deepest self that are outside of the structure that you create yourself for yourself in your everyday. I
Yes.
believe that to be true because you have to get out of that to even have the perspective of, oh, who can I be here? Who am I here? Who am I truly? Because now all the things that define me, in air quotations for those that are listening, are not there to be a mirror. And now I'm just existing in this space, in this new space, and the potential is limitless in theory.
Yes, yes, I love that. I think completion, as we all know, is part of the whole process of change that we're always in as human beings, and the planet is always in. We see the seasons change. There's completion in, like right now, this season of celebrating completion of fall and going into winter. So with that, I really, in completing certain cycles, I really feel deep gratitude for ritualizing completion, where we can look within ourselves and think and look and say, wow, I survived this cycle, whatever it may be. Um, I will ritualize this by doing something for me, taking a yoga class, going on a spiritual retreat. I love spiritual retreats no matter how they come, you know, just so they're
Yeah.
good. But this was an extreme one that I just did. Um, but retreats for completing something, you know, loving yourself and being feeling good about yourself for completion, and then moving into the next phase. We're constantly in change. So renewal for beginnings, you know, you at the end of every completion is a beginning. So
Right.
how can we complete things really well? So what we've learned, who we are, strengthen ourselves, love ourselves more, love others more,
Yeah.
and then begin the next phase, beginnings, which may be the theme in January.
That's
But
always that's always the theme, right? The
yeah,
fresh start, right? After the toil, after the trouble comes the potential hopeful reward, right? Did you have any insight and that you're comfortable sharing? Because sometimes these things can be very private, but any insights, any visions, any kind of like aha moments, any like gentle enlightenments, if you will, while you were, whether it was while you were actually walking, whether it was at night after you, did you have any like aha moments or any just lightning bolts, figuratively?
I guess one thing, so much of it was like this feeling that just going to this culture, this Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist culture of based on, you know, there's not a lot of division between church and state there. You know,
Right.
they're definitely. all Buddhists, and there is coming from compassion and generosity is their first thing. So there was so
Mhm.
much generosity by these people for us. Like they love picnics, and we went out on a had a picnic after we visited a monastery, and there was a group of a family and a couple families of Tibetan people having a really nice picnic, and they came over to our blanket. There were like 10 of us, and they put out like their bags, please have some. They boiled up these little potatoes, like little
Oh,
finger
nice.
potatoes and salt, and they were just in the bag, takes. So we each took a potato, and they had a bag of wrapped candy, and so they're just randomly came over and said here, and just the warmth of these people and that loving compassion. And then I've always been a fan of the infinity symbol. I have a
Yes, me too.
tattoo, and I've got now I got another one with the infinity, or the Buddhist infinity symbol, endless
Oh,
knot.
that's beautiful. I
But
love that. Did you get it? Did
anyhow,
you get it there?
I got it right before I left.
Oh, I mean, that's perfect. I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah.
that symbol showed up everywhere. And
Really?
yes, because it's one of their eight precious auspicious symbols of Tibetan
Okay.
Buddhists. So there's eight precious symbols, and oftentimes these eight symbols are in at doorways. So when you
Yep.
enter places, you have auspiciousness,
Yep.
put upon you, or you think that way because you these see these symbols. But the infinity sign, anyway, has been meaningful for me. And um, so these symbols showing up everywhere on buildings and flags. And then I was in one of the monasteries, which was thousands of years old, and it was still an operating monastery with Buddhist monks in it, with all these relics, Buddha statues, and statues of all these, different deities. And I just got this overwhelming feeling of like how many years this place has been here, and in these walls, how many mantras have been said, chants by these Buddhist monks, and how many people have come in to pray. And like right in this building, there was so much love and compassion that was like you can't quantify, and this sounds maybe
Right.
kind of crazy, but I could like feel that like there's an infinite amount, and then the infinity thing like clicked for me, like, oh, this is what an infinite amount of love, because it's always happening in these four walls, these chants and these noises and the people that come in, which is goodness, and it's exponentially kind of swirling in there, and you can kind of
Yeah.
feel it. So it gave me this thing like, oh, this can happen even in places where there's division, and maybe we think that we can't connect from heart to heart. And yeah, this is kind of woo-woo stuff, but we are all humans, and we can all connect on that heart level. So it really, those kind of experiences in these old monasteries after I had it the first time, really kind of felt like this energy sucking me in each time. And I'd seen an infinity sign on the wall, and I'd be like, there's my affirmation, really kind of making this a ritual around how I can connect to these ideals and bring them into my life. So I think that was a big one, as far as really kind of something that really stirred me and made me kind of shift a little bit inside. Just also physically completing the Kora, that especially hitting those high elevations
Right.
without getting sick, and just saying at the top of the Kora, at the top of the mountain pass, Jolmala Pass, it's called, people will hang up prayer flags. So there's thousands of prayer flags hanging in
Oh,
every direction.
wow.
They'll light incense, and say a prayer to a loved one or a lost person, or, lots of things happen up at that, because at that pass
Yeah.
is supposed to be a really magical place where transformation can occur. So when I was up there, I um, basically placed a green Tara picture. I love the Tara as the feminine deity of
Yes.
Buddhism. Um, and just consciously said, let go of things that no longer serve me
Sure.
right now. All that past stuff, like I was kind of alluding to before. And I seriously, I felt lighter. I felt lighter than I have in years after completing that.
I love
Just,
that.
I gave myself permission to, and then
Yeah.
that, to let go of some stuff because we hold on to stuff that we don't even realize a lot of times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just in the physicality, like the things that we have, right? The things that we keep, the things that we oh gosh, I like we're gonna go to the complete yang from the yin that we were just discussing. And if you ever saw the movie Fight Club, which happens to be one of my like all-time favorite movies, it has some of these principles threaded through it in its own very special kind of dark way.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I remember that stuck with me from that was the quote, "The things that you own wind up owning you." And that quote I do remember, and I always took that with me going like that is so true. Like I don't know that there is anything more true than that statement. And of course it's a conversation about materialism versus the spiritual things that we hold on to, but I believe that everything carries energy and that even the things that you hold on to from a place of love still carry that energy. And I think that I don't remember the specific Buddhist principle with regard to the things of loved ones or passed on, but I do believe that Native Americans are very specific about not holding on to things from their deceased loved ones because it carries the spirit. I believe there's something to that effect, and I don't want to butcher it or get it wrong, but I do believe that that process of release can be a good place to start for people who may have issues is releasing things that you can touch, like actual things, because I think that the physicality, for example, in your trek, in the Kora, in that actual walk, in what you put yourself through, the physical demands on your body, is in essence the same principle. As let's say cleaning out your closet, but it's for your body, and your body is the thing that is holding, because remember, our bodies store all of our emotions, they would store all of our unprocessed energy. And I think that when you talk about spiritual retreats, or you talk about you talk about going on I believe the like sweat lodges, those types of things where it's this physically demanding, whether it's sitting in a sweat lodge, whether it's hiking up a mountain, whatever it is, that physicality purges your body the same way that you might purge a junk drawer, purge a closet. This way to be able to tangibly release, but in that spiritual way, you're using your body as the vessel that it is to release all of that decades of trauma, of difficulty, of whatever it might be, and just having that kind of sensation of, for those who are listening who haven't maybe started a spiritual journey but want to, or just take from this the idea of releasing, purging, moving through, and letting go. That there's the mundane, right? We always say, and then there's laundry, right? The mundane, and then what you did, which is like the epitome of, if you will, of the way to purge and to release and let go.
Well, yeah, exactly. And also the mind connection there is really huge because our mind has to let us let it
Yeah.
go almost. And when you were talking, I thought of how Buddhists in general let go of thoughts. We know that thoughts and things come up and that it's always fleeting. So when I watched our Tibetan tour guide, an amazing man who could speak English, Tibetan, got us through all these obstacles along the way with the Chinese government, which that's a whole nother story.
Oh
Tibet
yeah, I'm
was
sure.
occupied by the Chinese. But he was a Buddhist, and people would get, upset about things, and all these things would swirl around him, and he was so calm. He figured out what the core of the issue was and came back and solved it. He would never hold on to any criticism or any negativity. Or so the Buddhists kind of have this way of, in relating with people, instead of reacting like, you called me that, I'm going to call you a worse name back, or something,
Right, right.
reaction thing, which doesn't lead down the best path necessarily. They have this ability to say, that person was not happy, so I feel compassion for them. They are upset. They are not happy right now. So I can't take it personally that they just snapped at me and reacted. I will be even more compassionate to that person because they're obviously having a hard time. So That's kind of how I explain it. Of course, they've had years of practice. They grow up with this, but they just don't react. Instead, they respond with love or realizing that, since we're all the same at the core, if someone has an angry reaction, they deserve some compassion. So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting way of just people interacting with each other, just loving and very, very generous along the way. But releasing thoughts like that before they become a story in our minds, I guess, is the
Hmm.
point. Because we can hold things like, for years, in that job I had, there was this that I got screwed over, and that relationship it got screwed over, and and then all of a sudden, you can kind of say, oh, we're all suffering in some way in those things. And there's a lot of causes and conditions that cause weird stuff to transpire. But who are we to have the power to figure it out or to blame just one thing? Or, so it's too complicated. Let it go. Let's be in the present.
Yeah.
But a lot of that. So just seeing, yeah, how we can release things in our minds too before they can get sometimes out of control. I know
Yeah.
I do that. I can really dwell on stories and then make myself sick.
Well, and then that's the power of meditation too, when you're talking about Buddhism and you're talking about, the idea of I don't want to say control over the mind, but we'll say redirection. And the stories that you tell are within your control to tell. So, even the feelings and the emotions, less so, because those just come up like, untamed animals, right? Depending on whatever thought process, but it's always a thought that sparks the emotion, 9 times out of 10. Or the emotion may spark the thought. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg, but it's they talk about when you're trying like the power of meditation, they talk about, feeling the thing that you're trying to manifest before you have it. And I think it goes back to your point of kind of the story that you tell yourself and starting to talk yourself out of that spiral and say, okay, what feeling do I want to feel? And tell yourself that story instead. And start to say, okay, well, this happened. And, I always look at whatever we'll call negative things that occur. There's a reason for this. There's a lesson in this that I chose, and this is just my personal belief that I chose before I came into this incarnation, and that I chose this lesson, and that there's something, and I'm going to repeat it whether I like it or not, until I have or my soul has expanded into that lesson, and I can then move on to the next lesson, which will hopefully be maybe a little bit less challenging. But I think that idea of storytelling and the mind aspect is, we talk about mind, body, spirit, but there's definitely that link of the mental having probably one of the most pronounced effect on the physical that we are consciously aware of. Because I know that the spirit does consistently and always, but I don't know that everyone or that most people are as consciously aware of the impact of their energy and their spirit on their physical manifestation.
Right, right. Because we do, as I think the Buddha said, our mind creates our world.
Yeah.
So we all have different minds and how we work them and what we choose to think about, I guess, or what we're forced to think about kind of shapes our world. So being able to work with, that's been very helpful for me to meditate and to work with my mind a little bit more, like learn about myself a little bit more. It's really easy to see other people's stuff,
Always.
It's a little
Yeah.
hard to see our own because we're so close to it. Um,
Yes.
so meditation has really helped figure that out. And also I just, with completion, I love the principle of impermanence. That's just a natural principle for the world, right? And that is about the cycles of change and always everything's impermanent. So if we get too attached to anything, that's going to be the cause of our suffering. We got to just
Right.
realize, well, things are going to change and it's not always easy, but yeah, how can we learn from it? How can we become wiser, like in the Buddhist thinking, wiser and more compassionate? These are opportunities for us to become more wise and more compassionate, these difficult things we challenge, we
Yeah.
face in our lives. Um, there's another concept that just because we're in this kind of, I'm thinking of cycles and change, I wanted to just throw out there that maybe a listener would be interested in, and I think it's powerful, this idea of a bardo in Buddhism, where a bardo is kind of different phases of existence, but it can also mean like secular. In a bardo, you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so there's different scales of bardos in the Tibetan Buddhist religion, but and I know just a little bit, but these bardos, if we look at kind of different chapters of our lives or different seasons as bardos, we can see these beginnings, middles, and ends that have happened if we look in back in our life, or if we're right now in a certain bardo. Like, I'm teaching a course right now and I'm in the middle of the semester. So I'm kind of in the middle of that bardo of that course,
Yeah.
and thank goodness there's an end coming. And, and so there's going to be an end. And then what's better than a fresh start again, or a little break in between bardos,
Yeah.
before we start up the next thing. And so maybe there's a time, that kind of completion is maybe in between a bardo. And, there's many teachings on bardos, but the big thing is that we're currently right now in this bardo of a physical lifetime as far as the Buddhists are concerned. And then when we
Right.
die, we'll move into
The
another bardo,
spiritual.
right?
Yeah.
And at that time of death, at that time of changing into a next bardo, is like the most powerful time ever, for our power of our consciousness. I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but
No, I love this. Love this rabbit hole. Yes.
and I'm not an expert, so I hate to go too much into it, but my point is that at that completion of a bardo or of a cycle, the wise elders are telling us there's a lot there,
Yeah.
because it's at the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. And there, if you can really kind of, how do I make this bardo better, or how do I be a better person, or how do I, whatever it is. But if we use those kind of endings and new beginnings in ways that can really nourish us, I think it's powerful.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think, when you talk about the infinity symbol, and you talk about the idea of the fact that it literally represents that the cycles are there is no true ending and there is no true beginning, because it's all just one, right? It's all the same. And so I think that, it's well beyond our tiny pea-sized human brains to comprehend the intricacies, or the reach of that concept, at least for my tiny pea-sized human brain. But I believe that, if you've ever, and I don't want to get too dark with this, but if you've ever experienced death up close, or if you've ever been, in the room, it's a very intimate, it's obviously awful and heartbreaking for those left behind, but it's a very, very intimate moment. And there's a certain literal, but there's a figurative quiet. And I've been in the room with family and friends who have passed, some as they passed, and there is this in that moment. And I don't know what it means, but it's like that. It's like the point in between the breath. That's the best way that I can explain it. It's the
Hmm.
pause in between the breath. So for everyone in the room, for the people that are close to the person, they miss the moment, like, because they're so consumed by their grief. But for someone who's in that space, and I think maybe probably nurses experience this quite a bit more than most humans, or people who go through this process. But I believe that there's that sacred pause. And for me, if we're talking about the not the Buddhist infinity symbol, but I don't even want to say traditional, but the one I'm most familiar with, which is the sideways figure eight, right? I feel like it's represented in the connection between the two at the crossing point. And that's just the way that I process it for me. But that
Yeah.
space in that moment, that, like, you breathe in, you breathe out, it's the circle and the circle, right? There's that pause in between, and it's so quiet, and it's filled with sacredness, or it's filled with
Possibility.
love, and it's filled, it's just, it's spilling over. It is a spilling
Yes,
over cup in that moment. And
that
that's
would,
just something that I've
that's a
experienced.
brilliant example. I think that would definitely be an example of a bardo. Just that in and out breath and that pause in between is really a powerful place. And I think Buddhists would say that's where there are infinite possibilities. When we slow down our mind and we don't let our self-talk kind of derail us, there's really everything's open and wide, for us to explore it. So that pause is really, that's a great way to, yeah, say what I was trying to say there. The
Yeah.
pause is a sacredness and just possibilities. I love the idea,
Yes.
nothing's holding you back really there.
Right. Other than you. Yeah. Generally, 9 times out of 10, it's your own, it's that mind, right? It's that storytelling. Or fear. Fear, I think, is one of the biggest things that holds us back from our full expression of ourselves, of our human selves, and our spiritual selves in this plane of existence. Talk about going into the woo-woo lands. I think we're fairly well there at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
No
and
getting that.
I know, we could unpack so much here, and still just skim the surface. But I know that you also went on, maybe not as, I don't want to limit it by saying that, but I know that you also went on a yoga retreat as well, which I don't know if it had the gravitas of the excursion in the Himalayas, because I just think that's, I mean, how many times does some people never go to the Himalayas in their lifetime. So like I said, that's like a big, not only a physically demanding, but that's a bucket list experience, right? That's a if I've done nothing else in this world, I went to the Himalayas, right? And I had this amazing journey, and I did it, right? Like you said, I did it. I'm still here, and I had this beautiful experience. How was would you talk a moment or two about your experience with the yoga retreat, and um if there were any things that came from that, out of that, for you, that maybe tied into the experience? Were there any threads of similarity between the two in a spiritual or physical way?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, it really was blessed this summer to be able to take such amazing trips. And the yoga trip was to Santorini in Greece, and it was with a company called Yoga Adventures, and they do adventures all over the world. And this was definitely a fun girls' yoga trip, a little bit different than the my trip to much different
Yeah.
than my trip to Nepal and Tibet. But when I think of it this summer, I reflect back, I think of kind of from the highest top of the world point from Himalaya to the sea level of Santorini. So,
Right.
these viewing life through different elevations. And just lifestyles are so different. I mean, so many things that many cultural differences between the two places, and where Tibet is quite remote, so not a
Right.
lot of tourists there. Santorini, Greece, is quite a touristy place, but the Greeks are just lovely, and so there was a very, they love Americans because we go there and spend a lot of money,
Right.
uh, and they're so friendly, such good food. Um, so my intention going into that retreat was really because I do practice yoga. We've talked about it before,
Yes, absolutely.
yin yoga, and but I do the traditional yang and hatha yoga, which was what we did in Santorini, and it was this beautiful location of overlooking, the Aegean Sea, and engage. My intention is what I'm going for here. My intention was to deepen my yoga practice and just laugh a lot and be joyful, right?
Yep.
Because this is going to be great with other like-minded women. So we started every day in doing yoga, and it was such a joyful group. I deepened my practice in some ways, but then I thought, I'm going to lighten up and not have this be so much about trying to accomplish something physically. I'm going to be about spaciousness and going with the flow. So that kind of came to me in doing yoga and trying, here we were looking at the sea, the flow. So it was really kind of like practicing going in the flow kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and just beautiful. We laughed tons. We had so much fun. Um, how many women? I think there are 8 women from the US that I went with my cousin Mary, who's a blast,
Wonderful.
and wonderful woman, and then some other women. But we all bonded. It was just another, loving group. It was so sad to leave, but
Right.
and I guess that just dawned on me. I've been having a hard time with completion of this summer, actually, because these amazing adventures, and then, I've got to complete. I still want to be on that high of, these amazing adventures, and I have to complete them now and go back to work. So that's just has been, what I've been dealing with the last 6 weeks. But I think I'm back to the workspace now. But there is sadness in completion for sure. And it doesn't
Yeah.
happen overnight. I guess that's what I'm coming to right now after the yoga trip. It almost got me like, I don't want it to end,
Yeah. Yeah.
this wonderful place and everything is just like not real almost, it's not
Yeah.
um but just left there feeling, super blessed. I guess I just, post Tibet feeling kind of like a little bit of a lightness after that experience, just a little bit kind of fell off my shoulders, really out of my head, like that I wasn't
Yeah.
holding on to. And then going into this, I'm just like, I'm going to be a yoga diva and have a great time. Let's laugh a lot, be joyful. We danced, we went on a catamaran and danced, and, we just, had a good time. So now it's like on the other side of that. And now, yeah, that completion of having to like get back looking at the computer screen and thinking hard about things.
But think about all of that energy that you've transmuted in those two experiences that are still with you when you sit back down at your computer. Because you're not going to be the exact same person that you were right before you left for the pilgrimage. And I feel like it's so beautiful that you had this strenuous, deep, like it's very deep, right? And you feel lighter because of the depths that you have to go through, even just physically, right? And I'm sure mentally as you were going through the dynamics of a group of people that you don't know in a place that you don't know and then sleeping in a tent, you know what I mean? Like all of that is taxing physically, mentally, emotionally. And going through that, coming out the other side of that lighter and then doing this beautiful like again the opposite, right? This gentle, I'm sure the accommodations were probably pretty exquisite, right? Like being on the beach and being at sea level and just enjoying and create that lightness. You literally created a trip with the lightness that you found at the mountain, right? It was like the embodiment of that lightness and that celebration for what you accomplished. And even if it wasn't intended to be that, even if that wasn't where you went with it, that idea of like that, like I deserve to dance. Like you deserve to dance, right? Like you deserve to have that fun and in that beautiful experience and be in that wonderful place and celebrate your body and celebrate your femininity and do all of those things and then the laundry and then come back to work, yes, but now you're coming to your teaching with this lightness and that energy that you are exuding around you is still with you. So even though the culmination of the actual summer season, the culmination of the actual event is there, the energy, your energy has shifted, potentially forever in a positive way. And not in
Yeah,
the day to day, but the overall, that lightness, like you're going to carry that with you. And it may change the way you teach. It may change the way you inspire others. Um, you
yeah.
know, and that grief is part of that celebration.
Thank you. This right now doing this with you is definitely feeling like completion in a lot of ways too, for that on that aspect of my journey, just coming back here. But
Yeah.
and I kind of thought of that as I was getting ready to talk to you today. I'm like, this will be good completion for kind of like, yeah, these trips happen. I like how you've just framed it. One thing I haven't done because I felt like I don't want to totally complete the Tibet Nepal trip in my mind or something is put out my like slideshow, my little, video or photos about this trip. I have so many. I have like
Yeah.
600 from 3 weeks I was gone.
Oh, wow.
And so I can't do all of them, so I have to go
Right.
through each one, and I just haven't wanted to delete anything. Haven't wanted to like organize them into the folder that these are the ones for the video. Finally, this weekend, because we're talking today, I'm kind of doing that, and it's been on my
Yeah.
mind. Like, I need to share my trip with people. This is ridiculous. It's 4 months later. Uh, so thank you. I think this is part of my, yeah, weird completion just of the whole holding that whole trip and the aftermath, because it doesn't end. That pilgrimage did not really end on July 17th when I came back. It was just almost kind of a beginning, in a way,
Yeah.
an ending, but then a beginning, as we're kind of talking about. Um, but thank you for that. Yeah, I think I will carry that lightness and a little more spaciousness. I do feel like I'm carrying that forward, and a little bit
Yeah.
more reflective actions. That was part of our trip, was meditating in the morning and then doing some reflections in the afternoon, and that just the process and the act of reflecting on things. And I love to journal, so I will put them in my journal, a lot of thoughts, and that really has become now more of a practice, I think. And even in my teaching, this didn't work out so well. How can I change that for next time? Or, things like that. So a little bit more reflective practice in my journal writing as well came from that, I think. So a lot of good, yeah, little seeds that in the completion of those adventures that planted for this next phase, I guess.
I
Yeah.
and I love that you said, I haven't, thank you for sharing that, like you haven't gone through the photos because you like you're literally holding on to that trip, right? And like I feel like the irony is in that sentence because you like in order to really fulfill that practice, you have to let it go. Like that is right. Like like that blockage that is the blockage that we all suffer through. Like you literally just hit the nail on the head. Like this beautiful trip, you're still trying to hold on to it. You don't want to go through the process of releasing it by facing the photos, right? The photos are the physical
Right.
manifestation of the trip, and you want to carry it with you. And the ultimate act, right? If we could come full
Right.
circle on this entire conversation, the ultimate act is you just out like shared with us is letting it go, making it real for the people around you, sharing it with the world. And I think that's beautiful. And if you're starting to do that, I think that you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. It is time. So the timing of us speaking together today is perfect, because now I have space. I didn't have quite that space before. I had to go to Greece
Yeah,
and take
exactly.
a couple hundred pictures, and yeah.
You had to celebrate.
Right, right. And so, have that ritual.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. This is really, that's so true. This is conversation's been really a helpful act of completion.
Well, I love that. And is there anything that you are moving on to, anything that you're looking forward to in the upcoming year?
Well, it is I got a little bit of a taste of what it's like to take the summer off and
Yeah.
travel and push myself and think about deep things. So I think there'll be more of that coming in the future, for sure. So trying to figure that out. I'm at this point kind of hunkering down for a good winter of thinking about that, actually. Like,
Good.
how will that pan out? The next adventure, and the next part of my spiritual path. But I tell you, I've always been, I've loved in my adult life anyway, these spiritual adventures that women, especially women, right? But no, there's
Yes.
men write them too, but eat, pray, love. I
I
love.
was I was already thinking I was right there with you. Yes, I was right there with you. It felt like a very eat, pray, love summer for you.
Yes, and Wild with Reese Witherspoon. I think it was just called Wild, where
Yes.
Cheryl Strayed took the walk up the cascade. And her spiritual. She was mourning the death of her mother, and I just love that book as well. So, um, you know, that was another motivation to do a big spiritual adventure, is to kind of get some good material. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting, I want to do more creative work. And why couldn't I maybe write some poetry or write something around
Yeah.
these themes? So those are actually, that's one thing I'm leaning more into, different types of creativity in this next phase. So like writing more, drawing more. I love mandalas. Oh, they have the mandalas
Yes. Those are
everywhere.
beautiful. Yes, they're amazing. And then they talk about the act of letting go, and then they just clear them, and it's just like
Yes,
you're just like, oh
exactly.
my gosh.
Yeah,
It's just the and it's like thousands of hours of work that goes into them, and they're so intricate and so beautiful. And then it's just like if there's ever a metaphor in
right.
physical,
It
like right there,
happens
just wipe it off. It's just it's amazing to me.
at any moment. Yes, we could have something devastating wiped away, so
Yeah.
that's the nature of life. So yeah, the mandalas, so I just draw, like doodle mandalas a little bit and for relaxation, and just got a
Nice.
few of those in my journal. So I want to draw more. I've been in my head so much, like most of my adult life, working and so yeah, just looking for more creative pursuits too as I go into the next phase, because getting a little, the mind needs to be refreshed with new ideas and new things. And I love my work, teaching and sustainability, but I have also need more too. You need to keep it interesting. So
Yeah, it's all about balance, and your work is so impactful and so necessary and important for everyone. I know I have started to reduce my single-use plastic use ever since our last conversation.
yay,
I've switched back to bar soap, so at least it's something.
that's great.
It's
Lean into it,
something.
little by little.
But I believe because this flew into my intuitive mind, so I'm going to share it with you. I feel like the journal that you took with you might be a great place to start, potential book or potential, you have it, it's there, and then maybe you can build on that and it'll turn into something beautiful. I'm sure it already is something beautiful,
Yeah.
but if you look at it with the intention of sharing it, it might be able to help others. Just a
Yeah.
thought.
Oh, thank you. I will. Yeah, definitely. And I was looking back at my reflections before we talked today. So yeah, there are nuggets in there for sure.
Yeah.
And I just thought of another creative pursuit that we're pursuing right now. Me and my partner Todd, we're writing some songs.
I love that. That's amazing.
So we just finished one that I wrote. So I will share it with you
Please do. May I
after
ask for the name of it?
at the bridge.
Beautiful. I love that. How on brand.
Because yeah, I'm sitting here and living here.
Looking at the bridge. Yeah. For those of you listening, that Todd and Anne happen to have a bridge at their very beautiful home. So they live above the branch of a river, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous setting. So yes, yes, absolutely. Well, are there any final thoughts, any final just inspiration, intuitive hits that came to you that you'd like to share with our listeners before we move on with our first day in Mercury retrograde? I had to throw that in there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I guess with that, one thing that I came away with was the thinking of everything is sacred. Even the worst of the worst, there's something in there that could be a nugget to help you learn and grow and maybe learn more about your own mind. So that would be one thing. And with that idea of everything is sacred, even the worst of experiences, it's hard to think of that at first, because we don't want awful things happening to us.
Right.
But in those moments, just to be able to get through them, you almost have to, for me, I almost have to, there's got to be something sacred in this for me to move through and get through this phase and move towards completion. So everything is sacred, and where we're vulnerable, there are possibilities in that.
Yes. I love that actually. Yes, absolutely.
Kind of a little
Absolutely.
Brene Brownish, but like when you're feeling most vulnerable, like going to a foreign land, yeah, I felt vulnerable. I flew out on the day that we have so much news, but the in the Middle East, there were some air raids going on. So we're kind of
Oh,
around
right,
the
right.
airspace,
Yeah.
June 22nd. Um, and so I'm like, do I do this or not? Well, I, went for it. But the possibilities when you kind of, push into the uncomfortable spaces, there's a lot of possibility in there. So
Yeah.
I'll end with that.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Anne, for sharing well, first, congratulations on all of your adventures. And I look forward to hearing more about the ones that are upcoming when your path reveals itself, right? Because it'll be a winter of hunkering down and, being with loved ones and all that. And then hopefully there will be a new trajectory for you when you go on your next adventures. And I can't wait to hear about them. And I then just thank you for sharing with me and thank you for, you know, being such a beacon, right? Like, I mean, what you did, not every woman does or has the what to do, right? But you did it. So you did it and you're here and you celebrated with an awesome yoga retreat afterwards. And I love the positivity and the light that you are bringing to all of it. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your space with me.
Thank
And
you so much, Gia. It's been a
thank
delight.
you.
Always is.
Always. It's always delight. And I just
Yes.
want to say that I also appreciate each and every one of you for our listeners for sharing this space with both of us. And so please feel free to share the same with your loved ones. For more goodness, follow me on all the socials at Above the Ground Podcast and visit my website, airsAboveYoga.com. As always, please don't forget to check out my amazing sisters at divasthatcare.com and all of my other episodes where you can find us on Spotify, Odyssey, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else that you might feel guided. Again, my name is Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground podcast, where every day is a good one.